Welcome back, depth divers. Ready for another fascinating journey into the world around us?
Always.
Today, we're diving deep into something truly fundamental to all life on Earth: energy flow in ecosystems.
We'll be uncovering the intricate connections between every living thing out there.
From the tiniest bacteria to, well, the biggest whales.
Exactly.
And we've got a ton of research articles and some really cool visuals to guide us.
It's going to be quite the adventure.
But before we get lost in the specifics, let's start with the basics. Lay the foundation. What exactly are trophic levels?
Yes. Trophic levels. Well, think of them as the different dining experiences you might find in an ecosystem. It's all about, who's eating whom.
So it's like a food chain, but with like levels? Is that what you mean?
Precisely. It's a sort of hierarchy based on how organisms get their energy. At the very bottom, we have the producers. Think of them as the chefs of the ecosystem, so to speak.
Okay, got it. So like plants would be producers, right?
Exactly. Plants, algae, and even some types of bacteria are all producers. They're the foundation of pretty much every food chain out there because they have this incredible ability.
I'm guessing you're going to say photosynthesis?
You got it. They can convert light energy, or sometimes chemical energy, into a form that other organisms can use.
Right. So without producers, there wouldn't be any food for, well, anyone else.
Precisely. They're the cornerstone of the whole system. Now, if we move up the trophic levels, we run into the consumers.
Consumers.
Yep. These are the diners who, let's just say, they can't cook for themselves. They have to rely on others for their meals.
Okay, so that's where the animals come in, right?
Right.
Everything from like a tiny little insect munching on a leaf to a wolf taking down an elk.
Exactly.
Yes.
And there's a ton of variety within the consumers, too. You've got herbivores who stick to a strict plant-based diet. Then there's the carnivores who, well, they crave meat. And let's not forget the omnivores who enjoy a bit of both.
Uh-huh. Speaking of omnivores, I'm definitely guilty as charged. Pizza and salad, please.
Oh, absolutely. And then there's this other group, kind of the unsung heroes of the ecosystem, the detritivores.
Tetrativores.
Yep. These guys were like the ultimate recyclers. They feast on, well, let's be honest, it's not the most glamorous food. Dead organic matter, breaking it down and returning all those essential nutrients back to the ecosystem.
Ah, so it's like nature's composting system.
You got it.
Mhm.
They're absolutely crucial for nutrient cycling and keeping ecosystems healthy and thriving. But now, here's where things get really, really interesting. Remember how producers can capture energy from the sun or, sometimes chemicals?
Yeah, like those crazy deep sea bacteria you mentioned, the ones that thrive without any sunlight at all. Wild.
Well, when that energy gets transferred between trophic levels, say from a plant to a rabbit or from that rabbit to a fox, it's not exactly, a perfectly efficient process.
Oh, so you're saying not all the energy from a juicy carrot actually ends up, powering that rabbit hopping around.
You got it. A surprising amount of energy actually gets lost along the way.
Lost, like where does it go?
Think of it this way. Every time energy is used, or even just transformed, some of it inevitably dissipates. It escapes as unusable heat.
So it's kind of like when you charge your phone and it gets a little warm. Some of that energy just escapes as heat instead of fully charging the battery.
That's a great analogy. The same thing happens in living organisms. It all boils down to, well, a fundamental principle in physics: entropy. Things have this natural tendency to move towards disorder, and unfortunately, some energy just gets lost in the process.
Got it. So if this energy transfer isn't perfectly efficient, how much actually makes it to the next level? How much energy is that rabbit actually getting from the carrot?
Well, that's where this really cool concept comes in, the 10% rule. It's incredibly useful for understanding how ecosystems are actually structured.
10%. That's it. This doesn't seem like a lot. Tell me more. 10%. Wow. Okay. So only 10% of the energy from one level actually gets passed on to the next, huh? That really puts things into perspective, you know?
It really does. It kind of highlights the limits of energy transfer in nature. So let's imagine that rabbit again.
Okay, our little rabbit friend, back for another round.
Yeah. So he's happily munching on those carrots, absorbing all that lovely energy from the producers. But then, a fox comes along.
Oh no, not our rabbit.
Well, it's nature, right? But the point is, when that fox makes a meal of our rabbit friend, it's only getting a small fraction of the energy that the rabbit consumed throughout its entire life.
Oh, I see. So all that energy the rabbit used to, hop around, grow, just be a rabbit, it basically just disappears.
Well, disappear isn't quite the right word. It gets transformed.
Transformed, like into what?
Mostly heat, actually, which
Yeah.
isn't, easily usable by other organisms.
Right. So it's not gone, but it's not really like useful in the food chain anymore. I guess that makes sense.
Exactly. And, this inefficiency, it has this huge impact on how ecosystems are structured. And one way we can visualize this is through something called ecological pyramids.
Ecological pyramids. Yeah, I think I've seen diagrams of those. They kind of look like, well, pyramids, I guess. Wider at the bottom, narrowing as they go up.
Exactly. That shape is key. It represents, that flow of energy and the amount of biomass at each trophic level.
Biomass, sorry, just to be sure I'm following. Biomass is like the total amount of living stuff at each level, right?
Right. So the base of the pyramid represents the producers. They're the foundation.
Right. Can't forget our producers.
And as we move up the pyramid, each level gets smaller and smaller. Why? Because there's less energy available to actually support a larger number of organisms.
So fewer foxes than rabbits, even fewer owls than foxes, and so on.
Precisely. But here's something really cool. Those ecological pyramids, well, they're not always a classic pyramid shape,
Right, really? So not always that perfect triangle shape.
Nope. They can be upright, inverted,
Yeah.
even kind of wonky. Really just depends on the ecosystem.
Wonky pyramids. Science is full of surprises. Okay, but how can a pyramid be, like, upside down? How does that even work?
Okay, picture this. A lush forest, tons of trees, other plants, forming that base of the pyramid, right? Lots of biomass.
Yeah, okay, I can picture that. Big, strong trees living for, like, ages.
Now let's switch it up. Imagine an ocean ecosystem.
Yeah.
The producers there, they might be tiny phytoplankton,
Phytoplankton.
microscopic algae. They float around in the water.
Mm-hmm.
Now, individually, they don't have a ton of biomass, but they reproduce super quickly.
Ah, so even though there might be less phytoplankton, like, at any given moment, they're pumping out energy like crazy to support, like, a much larger population of whatever eats them.
You got it. It's like a super efficient, fast-paced energy factory.
Wow. Okay, so the shape of the pyramid really depends on, like, the specific dynamics of that ecosystem. I never realized how complex it all is. So we've got these ecological pyramids showing us, that energy flow. But where do humans fit into all of this?
That is the question, isn't it? And honestly, it's not always pretty. Humans have a pretty significant impact on energy flow, often in ways we don't even, realize. Take deforestation, for example.
Right, yeah. Cutting down forests to clear land for agriculture or development.
Exactly. And when we do that, what are we really doing? We're removing vast amounts of producers, those trees, all those plants that form that base of the energy pyramid.
So it's like we're removing the foundation of a house.
Exactly. And without that foundation, the whole thing starts to crumble, right?
Yeah.
Fewer producers mean less food, less habitat for all those other organisms.
And that leads to, like, a decline in biodiversity, soil erosion, all those problems.
Exactly. It disrupts the whole web, the whole system. And then there's pollution.
Right, pollution, dumping chemicals and waste into the environment, all those toxins.
And those toxins, they can accumulate, right? They move right up the food chain. Biomagnification.
It's kind of scary when you think about it, all the consequences. But I guess knowledge is power.
Right.
The more we understand about all these connections, the better choices we can make.
Absolutely. It all starts with awareness. Recognizing that we're not, separate from nature, but a part of it, a part of these systems. And then, of course, taking action.
So where do we go from here? What can we actually do to, be more responsible, to be better stewards of these ecosystems? So much to think about. It really makes you wonder. Knowing all this, could choosing a veggie burger over a beef burger actually make a difference, in the big picture?
That's a great question. And it really does make you think, doesn't it? And the answer is yes, absolutely. Those everyday choices we make, they can totally have, a ripple effect on energy flow, the health of ecosystems, the whole thing.
Okay, so how does, like, my burger choice connect to all of this?
Well, remember the 10% rule.
Yeah.
Each time energy has to move up a trophic level, well, a lot of it is lost, right?
Right.
So when we choose to eat, lower on the food chain, like opting for more plant-based foods, those veggie burgers, we're essentially being more energy efficient.
Ah, I see. So by eating the plants directly, we're cutting out all those energy losses, the ones that happen when, like, an animal eats the plant and then we eat the animal.
Exactly. It's like taking a shortcut on the energy highway, so to speak. And those energy savings, well, they can translate into a smaller environmental footprint too.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more about that.
Well, producing meat, especially beefs, it requires a lot more land, water, resources compared to, just growing plants.
So it's not just about the energy itself, but, like, all the other resources that have to go into producing our food.
Exactly. And let's not forget about greenhouse gas emissions.
Mm-hmm.
Livestock, especially cows, they're major contributors to methane emissions.
Methane, right. One of those potent greenhouse gases.
Exactly. So yeah, our dietary choices, they can have a real impact.
It's a lot to consider. But what about other things we can do? It feels like, food is just one part of the solution.
Oh, for sure. Our understanding of energy flow, it can really inform like all sorts of actions, supporting conservation efforts, for example, to protect forests and other natural
Yeah,
habitats.
those forests, they're like giant energy factories absorbing all that sunlight, powering entire ecosystems.
Exactly. We need to protect them not just for the trees themselves, but for all the life they support.
And we can also advocate for policies that promote renewable energy, like solar, wind power.
That's huge. Moving away from fossil fuels not only reduces those harmful emissions, but helps us, move towards a more sustainable future.
It's like we're applying these ecological principles to our own energy systems, moving away from those finite polluting sources and embracing the power of nature.
It's all connected. Understanding energy flow, it's not just about memorizing facts. It's about seeing those connections, making informed choices that benefit, well, everyone, ourselves and the planet.
I feel like I've learned so much today. This whole deep dive has been incredible.
Glad to hear it. And remember, learning is a journey, right? Never
Ah.
stops. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and, keep marveling at this incredible world we live in.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And to all our fellow deep divers out there, keep those minds curious. We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration of the world around us.